Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today we have another amazing show lined up for y'all. Today, we have an author that's going to share with us his amazing book. It's a book that I feel if you are serious about life, if you are thinking about life, if you want to make your life better, it's going to be a book that you really want to read and share with family and friends. It's called 99 Words, Building a Better Life. And I can't wait to discuss what was the reason why he wanted to write this. But first and foremost, Curt Linville, he's a man of many passions. He's an author, philosopher, entrepreneur, a adventurer, and he has dedicated his whole life to exploring the depths of human experience. And he is sharing his wisdom with us today. He also is a family man and a person of faith. So first and foremost, I just want to welcome you to the show, Curt, and say, man, how you doing?
Shemaiah, thank you. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing awesome, man. It's Friday. And you know what time it is. Enjoy a little bit of NBA playoffs, if you not playoffs, finals, excuse me. And if you're going for the Pacers, good luck. If you're going for OKC, good luck, because it was a good game. I didn't get to watch it, but I saw the highlights and it looked like the Pacers had a little upset. So if you're in sports and basketball, I'm looking forward to some game time. I don't know if it's even tonight because in radio world, everything blends in. It's probably next week. I'm just so excited about it. But back to you, man. When you think about life, it can get fun and blissful at times, but other times it can get really serious. When you think about philosophy and you think about your faith and also life lessons, what are some of the things that contribute to your project 99 Words when it comes to building a better life?
Shemaiah, I think what really happened was my wife and I raised 4 kids that we just had a great time with. So much fun. It was the greatest thing I ever did in life, was raising that family. But as they became adults, especially young adults, then I started meeting a lot of their acquaintances as they were going to college and stuff like that. And I said, wow, this is a different world than I grew up in. And I found there were so many young people out there who just seemed to be a little bit bewildered. And so I'd committed, the majority of my efforts to raising our family. But once the kids were becoming adults, I said, hey, I have time for something else and I see a need. So I wrote 99 Words, and the whole goal there is to take away some of the bewilderment from how bewildering life can be, especially for younger adults, even though it's written for people of all ages. But the basic premise is really simple. It's that if you have good foundational beliefs, then you're going to make well-informed decisions, and that will change your outcomes. And when you collect all of those outcomes, it builds a life. It all starts with what we believe. And so this book doesn't tell people what to believe so much as it says, this is how we learn what truth can be. This is how you think of it as a toolkit so that you can build your own best belief system. But it's founded on beliefs that I think are foundational and give people footing in the storm. So
when you, speaking of storm, is plenty of that. If you want to rewind the tape, there's always moments when the intensity of the storm it can shake a person, but it can't defeat a person if they don't let it. And I'm saying that obviously as a metaphor because when you think about the lessons that life gives us, it kind of redirects our way of looking at purpose, our way of looking at friends and family. How would you address storms being a nice lesson for us to gather once it passes? How would you define understanding maybe the purpose of why storms come in our life?
Boy, we could go so deep with that. We could spend the rest of the time answering that one question. Let me hit a couple of bullet points, just some highlights. For starters, the storms of life are incredibly valuable because of what we learn from them if we're malleable enough to learn. But part of the premise of 99 Words is we can go through life with our blinders on. It's like going 80 miles an hour through the fog. You're going to get in trouble and have some big storms, right? And every time life slaps you upside the head, you have an opportunity to learn and to grow and to do better next time. But we don't have to wait for the tragedy to strike to begin to build a better belief system. So maybe we'll get a little bit fewer of those storms, or they'll be more manageable when they do come. 99 Words, the actual name of the book, 99 Words, it's about a system of looking at ideas, and 99 of them are listed in the book, but looking at ideas to try to find things that resonate with where we are in life. And then it's a methodology to learn how to grow in those areas that resonate with us in our current season. And by doing that, we actually build a belief system then. And that's the foundation that we can stand on. And, if you try to walk across a fast-moving river with slippery rocks, you're going to get knocked down pretty quick when the current hits and your feet slip out from under you. But if you've got a good, clean, firm foundation, then you can weather those storms without falling in. And, I think of, this sounds maybe a little bit trite, but it's just so impressive. We've all seen the picture of the lighthouse with a wave almost bigger than the lighthouse crashing against it. There's a reason why that lighthouse is still there, and that's because of its foundation. It's because of its foundation and each and every building block that is stacked with the right kind of mortar in the right kind of way, and that's what a belief system does for us. So when I think about people that grew up in a world that promotes nihilism and postmodernism and a bunch of other isms that are frankly confusing, bewildering, right? When I think about people that grew up in that kind of a world that was laced with social media, that was promoting just clicks and likes instead of values and truth, I see a huge need for us to dig deep again and find our roots, right? And build a belief system that will stand the storms. So there's a brief summary, but really that question that you asked about the storms of life, it's the basis for the entire book.
Appreciate you sharing that with us, because when you are thinking about what it actually means to, you're saying building, not built a life, but right. Building a better life.
Never ends.
That to me is saying you are in motion, you are active, you're engaging in the moment of time. You're not thinking about, okay, how can I make a better life? You're engaging. Kind of touch on that part of building, and what does that kind of look like when someone of faith and purpose is actually being present in that moment and not just fairy tale. I hope it gets better.
Several things pop into mind, but one is I start the book on the first page. I say, you'll never be good enough to save yourself. And the whole book is about getting better and better and better and better. The idea is that life can be better than it is because we can be better than we are. We can do better. We can make better decisions. We can build better lives. But I want to stress this. You'll never be good enough to save yourself. But you can be forgiven enough to save yourself, to be saved, right? And so as we go through life and we run into these challenges, we really have to look at, what am I supposed to learn from this? And when we make mistakes, we have to learn how to forgive ourselves, forgive others, and make restitution if necessary, so that we can get rid of the misplaced blocks that are messing us up, the stumbling stones, and we can replace them with blocks that are structural and help us in life. So, when life deals us some unfair blows, and it always does, and I want to throw this in as an aside, this life owes you nothing. So the first thing you got to do is to get rid of the victim idea. This life doesn't owe anybody anything. Instead, it provides us with countless opportunities to overcome challenges, to learn, and to grow. And the key, whenever we're going through the hard times, I think, is to lean into love and honesty, lean into forgiveness, and ask the question, what can I learn from this? and then realize sometimes we just have to keep on going. Sometimes when life is really, really hard, that's when you just have to pick one foot up and set it in front of the other. Because as you pass through the experience, you'll come out the other side and be able to reflect on it. And that's how life gets better.
Like we said about when it gets difficult, lean into forgiveness. And it's funny because I just had a conversation with a Marine veteran yesterday about never quitting.
Yes.
As he was talking in his interview, the only thing I can think of is like, wow, he never quit on anything. And I made that point, and then he came with a whole list of stories, and it's like it just lit up a flame. And I like what you're saying about leaning in those difficult times, because in those times you can either lean, and I feel like that initiates you to not quit and to actually move on and not be a victim, but say, you know what, if I survived for a reason, and there's probably sub points of my accomplishments that I can lean on and say, you know what, if I can get through those things, then why can't I get through right now? Because the pain of the storm is temporary as long as we don't stay in the past. And what I mean by that is, yes, life has pain, and yes, there's some scars, but you can choose to get better or worse. No one has that power over you. You have the actual ability to lean into love, or lean into forgiveness, or lean into, because it's almost telling you that, hey, you never know how much mercy you want until you need it.
May I share a story that I think illustrates that? So we like to backpack, and I took my three sons backpacking one time, and it was a after work trip. So by the time we got started, it was getting kind of late, and there was no trail to where we were going. So we were hiking down a very, very, very steep slope at about 12,000 feet, way above tree line. And it got dark on us, and our headlamps couldn't see far enough ahead of us to see if we were safe or not. We finally got to a point where the steep slope was turning into cliffs. And because we couldn't see and it was so slippery, I said, well, we're going to have to turn around and go up. And so my youngest son was very young. He was probably 7 or 8 years old. And as we're climbing in the dark for hours, climbing and climbing and climbing, everyone's exhausted. We're slipping. It's dark. We can't see. My youngest son looked at me and says, Dad, when do we get to stop? And I just looked at him and I said, when we're safe. And sometimes that's what life does to us. It's like, when do we get to stop? We just want to give up. But the reality is, you get to stop when you finish the course, when you're safe. And as an aside, we finally found a tiny little shelf that was flat enough for sleeping bags. And I put a tarp over them and had to use tent stakes to hold the tarp down because the wind was blowing so hard. But the stars that night at 12,500 feet were the most spectacular. I mean, the glorious, beautiful sky, so rewarding. We could hardly sleep for looking at it. And the next morning, we were awakened because a mountain goat was smelling our hair. And so it was such a rewarding, amazing experience. It was kind of like the rainbow after the storm. I mean, I don't want to, overgeneralize this, but we had such a great time. But that was a hard lesson to learn for my young son, that we can't just stop when we feel like we're too tired to keep going. Sometimes you have to just keep going.
Once again, you listen to Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Curt Linville. Go to his website, curtlinville.com, and get a copy of his book right now, 99 Words, Building a Better Life. What you just said about that experience, there's a story in there that whoever's watching and listening to us, that they can own themselves.
Yeah.
There's not one soul on this planet that can't have some kind of interesting story similar to having some conflict and then having, I would call, peace at the end. Someone who feels like they don't know peace. I think that's interesting. I can understand that from a limited space. People go through a lot, but I would argue you still got work to do.
Yes.
Because peace is not something we control ourselves. I believe peace is something that we receive. And if you prematurely quit or if you prematurely lose your focus, then you may miss out on peace. So you might feel like, oh, woe is me. I never have peace. It's always chaotic. It's always drama. It's always this. If ain't one thing, it's another. I think that's a very dangerous mindset. It does the opposite of what your book is trying to illustrate. Instead of building a better life, it destroys your life. It just destroys your moments. And I won't throw it back to you, but my last thought is, when you miss these windows opportunities, I feel like they're not just given at random. I feel like a lot of times these windows opportunities are like, man, this could be your last shot. If you don't do it now, when? Because tomorrow's not promised. You got this window opportunity. You might as well take the most of it while you can.
Yes, absolutely. And happiness and peace are two things that if you chase, you probably will never find. Instead, peace is on the other side of forgiveness. Peace is on the other side of learning to live an honest and a loving life. And it comes up within us, not because we grabbed a hold of it, but because it found us. And happiness is the same way. If you chase happiness, you're unlikely to find it. But if you find fulfilling things that you believe in, that you can pour your life's energy into, and you can do things that you value and that you know are helping other people, then one day you'll go, wow, I'm happy. It finds us when we let it.
Man, you said something right there. When you let it, wow, that's good. That's good, because how many times do we get so angry or frustrated that it's like we just want to shut everything down around us. Yeah. It's like, oh, you have no access. You have no access until I get through this. We always make it so selfish. Like we try to make it like we're the only ones who are going through something that's difficult, when the person down the road, down the street, right next to you in the elevator, they can have it 20 times worse than you. I mean, there's always a saying that if you think you have it bad, I guarantee you there's one person in this world that loves trade spaces with you. If you don't understand how powerful that is, because until we start understanding the things we actually have, whether it's good health, it may not be material things. It can just be things that most people would love to trade spaces with you. It can be that you had the ability to walk, and someone will be like, man, why are you having such a bad day, man? At least you can walk, like you're not in a hospital bed right now. And I feel like going back to the Marine veteran I talked to yesterday, the times that he'd been through those difficult times, he remembered the good things, remembered the things that he might have overlooked. But it's funny how you be so grateful when you're the person that's down the dumps and problems and trouble starts to follow you. It's kind of interesting how we all of a sudden, okay, God, if you just get me through this, I promise I'm a change everything. If you just get me through this one more time, I know I said I wouldn't, but if you just get me through this one more time, I promise I'll make it better. How many times have we done that? If we're being honest, we probably do it a lot. So
I joke that it's like getting on the roller coaster, then praying on the way up the first hill. Get me off of here. What am I doing here?
yeah,
This life is tough, Shemaiah. This is not an easy world. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain, a lot of things that just happen that are negative. And I used to think that was abnormal, and that when things were going really well, that's what was normal. And then I finally came to realize I couldn't be more wrong. Life is a mixed bag. It's always bitter and sweet. And it's what we choose to focus on and how we manage the challenges that makes life good. Not that we can escape the hard times. Not that we don't get ourselves in trouble over and over again, right? That's why I said peace is on the other side of forgiveness. It's a matter of how we manage this life and having the belief system that can give us the tools we need so that we don't get knocked down with every wind that blows.
Once again, you listen on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, Curt Linville. Go to his website, curtlinville.com. We are discussing his book that you can get right now. Save it for your friend and family, because I guarantee you're going to have something positive come out of reading this book. 99 Words, Building a Better Life. Let's keep hammering away on this point, because building also means understanding. Because you mentioned, think of this as like tools. And I love that, because I literally had this conversation with another person about, there was back in the day when I was high school, I was going through a program where you can get college credit and stuff. And the dean, he made a statement, and he said, you know what, in life, you are going through picking up tools and you put them in your toolbox.
Yes.
But if you don't take time to learn what those tools do, then if you're just picking them up, that means nothing. It means something once you start applying what you know with those tools. Kind of explain that and how you illustrate this book as being a toolkit, because unless we start to learn more about how these tools function, then we can't necessarily have the growth that we hope we can have.
Absolutely. So the whole process in chapter 2 that is called 99 Words, when you select something that you need to learn, you're trying to learn how to use the tool. And there's a whole process there, suggestions on ways that we can do that. But one is to understand what these concepts really are. So it's like doing etymology and defining it, and then setting up ways to remind ourselves that this is going to be a focus for a while. We're trying to make it part of our lives. So we have to, there are a whole bunch of different ways, but I mean, you can make notes for yourself. You can use ideas as passwords. You can carry something in your pocket to remind you that you're working on this thing, and you can meditate on it. You can learn what it means. You can pray. And what happens is you begin to become very familiar with a concept that you before didn't know how to use in your life, but it becomes a part of you, and it becomes even a habit, a good habit. So you don't have to overthink the decisions that you make. It's like, oh, because of that, I know what to do now. And, the book is almost 300 pages long, and it's all about how to apply these tools to our lives. But that chapter 2 describes the process of how we can revisit ideas and concepts and beliefs that make us stronger every day. So.
That's good. Yeah, because those beliefs that make us stronger every day is having the ability to own where you are and then figure out what's next. Because until you actually own and take accountability of actually where you are, nothing ever grows. I tell people all the time, when the show started in the barbershop in 2017, imagine if I never grew. Imagine I never kept growing. I'd probably still be in the barbershop. And there's a part of the story where I always share with people when people ask me how did the show come about. I said, well, there's always signs throughout life. I believe, y'all believe what y'all don't believe, but I believe God always sends people and things for confirmation. And there was a gentleman in the barbershop, older guy. And after the show, he would just kind of stay and listen to us and watch. And one time he stayed and he spoke to me. He said, "What's next? What are you doing here in the barbershop still? What else? What's the plan?" And I got a little offended. I was like, "Wait, what do you mean? We're grinding. We are here. We're getting these great interviews. We're And I said, "Well," I said, work on it. I know that much. I don't know what it looks like, but we'll work on it." He said,
Yes.
He said, "I hope so, because it'll be a shame if you stay here." And thinking about that, it gives me goosebumps, because it's like, wow, he was absolutely right. Because when you start to realize the tools that are available for you, it cancels out every excuse, every emotion that you might have during the construction process, because it's ugly. All right. We had 2 microphones and we had limited resources. It was like I'm gonna get it wrong. Forgive me, guys, for the Bible story, but the 2 loaves and 2 fish story. But it's like, it was limited.
Yeah.
But don't stay where you are, because even if you don't see beyond, like, I love the story that you sharing with the light. Like, you were limited in seeing what was in front of you, but if you had stayed, it would have been 10 times worse if you didn't move.
Sure. Well, it's important to realize that I've heard it said, and it's a good way to say it, is that you draw a circle and you call that your comfort zone. And then you reach outside of the circle where you're no longer comfortable. Well, that's where the good things happen.
Yeah.
If you stay in that little nest, you never learn how to fly. And I know that sounds kind of trite, but boy, it's true. And sometimes you need a gentleman to come up and kick you in the seat of the pants and say, "Get out of here."
Yeah. And it's not the focal point of that it wasn't easy. It's the focal point that you don't know how it's going to be done.
That's right.
You just don't. No one would have been able to convince me that I'll be able to talk to all these people like yourself on the show and still go in 2025. The biggest blessing, if you will, that I get to have in doing this show is that I get to hear all these different perspectives. But there's always one thread that I see personally. And that is, whoever's on this platform, they are living proof what it looks like when you don't quit.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I've talked to multi-millionaires. I talked to icons. I talked to every single person from every single TV network. I'm not dropping names because no one cares, because my listeners, they care about one thing. What are you going to teach me?
Right.
Every person been on this show, there's always been one common thread. They never quit. When we're at crossroads, we can fold and die at that spot. Or we can launch into something that has never been thought of ever before. And that's where the best memories are. So when you talk about the comfort zone, that circle, well, that is what our eyes see. Sometimes the person upstairs, they have to let us know, I see something else that you can't even see right now. But if you keep going, you're about to find out quickly, this is what peace looks like after the storm.
Yes.
Sometimes the storm has to shake you up. It's like you overstay your welcome, man. Get out of here. And then once we actually move and start using these tools to build a better life, then we can really look back and say, you know what? This is what it feels like when you don't quit, man. Because if you quit too soon, I'm telling you, you could be so close. And you can throw in the towel too early.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think sometimes when life is really hard, Shemaiah, when things are really challenging, we don't see a way out. That's when we actually have the greatest chance to learn. That's when, you know, it's trying to tell us something. And that's when we have to keep going. And maybe keeping going means pivoting, going a different direction, turning around, going back the way we came. I mean, we might be drilling into something that we shouldn't be any part of.
That's
right.
Good.
But that's where honesty comes in. If we can be extraordinarily honest with ourselves, we know what holds us back and what gets in the way and what our problems really are. You know, if we're that honest with ourselves. I got a chapter in the book called The Mirror. It's about looking in the mirror and looking into your own soul and being honest with yourself, sometimes for the first time ever. And that's what it takes. So if life is really, really tough, probably it's trying to tell you something.
Well, once again, been listening to Refocused Radio. Probably have this guy on for another hour, but we had to, you know the drill. We had to pay the bills and get out of here, but we definitely have to have him back on, hopefully in the future, especially if he has more books in him or other projects. But go visit his website. It's CurtLinville.com and get a copy of the book that we've been talking about this whole discussion, 99 Words, Building a Better Life. If someone wants to stay in contact with you or just be in the know, if you have any updates on more books or more projects, what's the best way that they can keep tabs on you online?
You know, CurtLinville.com is probably the best way. I have other projects going on. I mean, you can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram. I'm not super active with those, but you can find me there. I also am the host of another podcast, the Adventure Sports Podcast, where we talk about adventure and overcoming life's challenges a lot. But you can always find me at CurtLinville.com, and there are links there that will take you to everything I have going on.
Well, like always, like we say to all of our guests on the show, I want to say to you, Curt, thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you, Shemaiah. I really appreciate it, and it's an honor.